Engineers, for collecting the written opinion, I was sent alone to Mr. Daftari's bungalow in Maharani Bagh in Delhi on my mobike. So I went there, waited for 5-10 minutes, then he called me in and he said, "Young man, I have written the opinion, you can go through it, and if you have any questions, you can ask me." And I felt truly privileged. So I went through the opinion. It was not a very long opinion, 4 or 5 pages, and he had said why the price control was valid. I had done a bit of my own reading and had found that the Essential Commodities Act cast an obligation on the regulator to fix what was referred to as fair price. And I asked him, "Sir, you haven't dealt with the issue of fair price. Do you think a fair price is only one which is fair to the consumer? Doesn't have to be fair to the producers and manufacturers?" I was a bit hesitant, but I nevertheless asked him that question. And you won't believe, he changed his opinion. And actually, greatness of the man, he gave me full credit for that in his opinion, to say, this young lawyer who came from DCM asked me this question, and I now agree that government has an obligation to fix a fair price, and price to be fair must not only be fair vis-a-vis consumers, it must be fair vis-a-vis industry as well, or manufacturers as well. And therefore, that's something which you must learn to really do. Last bit, I think as a general counsel, the trait that you must adopt, I think Prasanna averred to it, be apolitical. Don't be aligned with personalities or with functions. And that's something which very often I think you find that lawyers tend to align a lot more with finance and accounts guys. They align less with marketing and sales. My lesson and my advice to you would be, remain totally non-aligned and independent, and don't. And last message that I want to give is, any organization where you become a general counsel, study legal history of that organization. What were the key challenges? What were the key litigations? Go through old files. You might need to spend a fortnight after joining in that role going through the old files and records, but trust me, you would find them hugely valuable as you go along. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think MK touched upon the importance of being brief and to the point, and that's what the panelists are going to be when I ask them the question. They're going to be brief and to the point. I would like to pose a few questions, but I encourage you to please ask questions soon after this first round of questions are over to the panel. As moderator, I have a few questions to ask them. I'll just continue with MK. MK, it is said that as you climb the ladder of success, check occasionally to make sure that the ladder is leaning against the wall. How does one ensure this in the changing dynamics of the organization? Does it entail some degree of sycophancy to be successful? MK.
Well, to my mind, the wall against which the ladder has to lean has to be the wall of conscience and ethics. And if you have that wall of conscience and ethics, which you are using to have your ladder be standing against, I don't think you run any risk of having to be a sycophant. And as I mentioned, you have to be autonomous and independent, and you have to be helpful, yet without compromising on your integrity and on your objectivity.
Any 30-second comment from the other panelists? 30 seconds. Okay, great. Let me ask Laura. It is said that it is not important to hold all the good cards in life, but it is important how well you play those cards that you hold. Do you think that the career progression of a GC depends on this approach, playing your cards right? What has been your experience?
I think you need one good card And that's the confidence, the trust from your business boss. You always also have, even if you report in the legal reporting line, you also have a business boss. Otherwise, your time is consumed by selling legal's value to the business, because it all also falls down from the top. The tone from the top really dictates how your business peers will also behave. And of course, then, in my view, it is indeed about how you play the cards. With your superior, also use the business insights and listen to what they have to say. Sometimes perceptions count. You don't have to, as MK said, and that is the very good bottom line of all we do, don't compromise on your integrity, but you've got to sort of like also understand where the other side is coming from. Explain the whys, the why are we doing this? Create the sort of like closeness, partnership type of thing. For example, when I hire, I always hire with the business guys. I give them the final say in the matter. And usually we all agree on build bridges, and then also understand that there is a certain dichotomy in the system. It comes from the system because legal looks at the longer term, and sales, for example, look at the shorter term. And you just have to reconcile the two worlds. And I think the building partnership type of relationship, this is relationship business, that helps.
Thank you, Lara. Thomas, it is said that being popular in an organization is the key to success. Should one be playing the popularity game?
So my answer to that is, and an input or an advice is, focus on building credibility than popularity. Right? I think credibility needs to be built for you as an individual professional, and also as a leader, as a GC for the entire team. And I don't think GC's game is in one-man game anymore, and you need a credible team. And that credibility is the most important thing, and you need to understand that there are times when you'll have to go and say no to the client, and if you're credible, and if your function is credible within the organization, the clients will take that no. Right?
Any 30-second add-on comment to that? All right. Anubhav, Mr. Bill Gates says, success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking that they can never lose. In your experience, how do you see this situation when the road to success is full of potholes and you need to tread cautiously? Do organizations lack patience and deliberation, don't give you enough time to really overcome those hurdles? How do you balance the client's disproportionate expectations?
That's a tough one, Prasanna, though you gave us the questions before, but it is still a tough one because it comes from Bill Gates himself, right? And Bill Gates was the youngest billionaire, and what that represents to me is he basically proved to the world that any dreams can come true till you believe in it, right? So success obviously has that seducing effect, right? But I think the greatness comes out of the learning from the failures. When I reflect back, some of my most happy moments or proud moments, so to say, were basically counterparts to some of my challenging or painful experiences that I had during my evolution or during my struggle days, right? And that is what when I reflect back, I see that yes, I have improved over a period of time, but success is very relative. It is, the lessons are basically from the failures that you, or the challenges that you have faced in the past. Yes, organizations are becoming increasingly number focused. We see that happening all the time, right? almost we have become quarterly, right? Thinking the system now does not force us to think beyond a quarter. Have we met the numbers? Have we closed the contracts? Have we booked the revenues? Are we meeting the targets? Those are the questions that keep on coming to us every day, every day, right? And therefore, I'm happy to kind of observe certain changes, right, in the systems around us. One is right in the Tata Group. Our chairman said, we don't want managers to think quarterly. He gave us a vision which says, touch 25% of the world population by 2025, either as community or as customers. We don't want you to be thinking quarterly because we are about trust, we are about long term, and that's what appealed to me. In fact, Unilever has come out with a similar philosophy, right? They have gone to the public and said, we don't want, or please don't measure us with quarters. We are not about quarters, right? So I think that's the change organizations need to adopt. Yes, quarterly is important for disclosure purposes. That's how it started. But strategies and trust cannot be built on quarters.
Thank you. Shivani, Bill Cosby says, in order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear of failure. Do you think this applies to General Counsel?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I don't think you can be held back by fear of failure. And as I'd mentioned as well, I think risk is very much a part of the job that we do, and it's very much a part of any business. The company I work for example, I think is much more high risk just by the fact of the business that we're involved in. But the key really is to understand what the risks are and figure out what's acceptable and what isn't. I mean, when I joined G4S, I used to hear stories of the good old days when the business was expanding in the region that I was in, which is the Asia, Middle East. And this is a company which is over 100 years old. And the good old days were, they'd go and negotiate a contract, with someone in the Middle East and write it up there and then and sign it on the bonnet of a car. And I used to hear those stories and they were horrifying. I mean, you can't do that if, you're guarding a nuclear installation or transporting the payroll of troops in Afghanistan and things like that, So one of the things that I did was I put a stop immediately to practices like that in the good old days. It's been a journey, but I think a little bit of risk you have to accept.
Thank you. The panelists now will give strictly 1 minute response to each of the questions that I'm going to put. 1 minute. MK, you transitioned from legal role to being the vice chair, where you completely delinked from legal function, though you had acquired enormous legal skills. And do you think that these skills benefited you as a board member? And as a board member, how did you look at the legal function, having disconnected from it?
Well, to be perfectly honest, if someone wakes me up at night and say, who are you? I would still say I'm a general counsel. And I don't think my profile changed just because I became a whole-time director and then the vice chairman of the company and had oversight on other functions, other businesses of the company. I continued to be the general counsel, even as the vice chairman of the board, and I wasn't willing to give up that role at all. It was so dear to me and so fundamental to my existence as a person. I would have felt deprived myself of certain roles if I didn't play that role. So
a 30-second supplementary to you. Did you see a conflict between the fiduciary role and the advisory role?
No, if you are driven by conscience and righteousness, there is no conflict.
Excellent. Thank you. Laura, the Western and European countries have seen GCs transitioning to operational roles. What sets them apart to be considered for such roles? Do you think that the real climax, as opposed to just retiring as a global GC, should that happen?
This is a very pertinent question because today we are announcing a transition from my team of one esteemed lawyer into an operational role, regional director sales role, which is a very big role as a first operational role. I'm very proud of it. And I think that what really sort of like sets these guys apart is the business-mindedness, the confidence to make decisions. Very often we are in very uncertain circumstances. So you've got to have the courage also to make decisions. And leadership skills, of course, are important. But I would not call that as a climax of a career. Numbers are powerful. Numbers make your work very concrete. It's a concrete measure. Lawyers, it's invisible, and you've got to accept that you are a silent influencer. We actually hold quite a bit of power in our hands as GCs.
Thank you. Thomas, you have worked in India and in overseas jurisdictions. Would you be saying that in order to make it to the cut, it is necessary to work outside India in a diverse cultural setup?
I think it helps. Businesses are increasingly becoming multinational, and all the businesses have global ambitions today. So the legal departments also need to be global in that sense. Working outside India helps you get exposed to various cultures. You are managing a team. In my current role, I manage a team of 100 lawyers spread across 20 locations from 13 nationalities. So the cultural adjustment is understanding their markets very well, understanding how the profession works in those countries and set the right expectations. And I think it really helps. And when you look at running a global organization,